It's set on up here. But guys, we're going to be starting over here in the top right-hand side of 2,000 atmospheres on top of our blue Terran player. He is none other than Semper.
Bottom left corner of the map from the cranky ducklings, it's PattyMac.
All right. So I think for those who don't know, because I think most people will not be as familiar with PattyMac, PattyMac has been here and there. He actually did manage to make it very close to like the qualifying and stuff for the last season of the DreamHack SC2 Masters. But he basically he wasn't able to play some of the tiebreaker matches that happened in these qualifiers. And like, it was just this whole thing. So basically he ended up having to kind of like give it a spot. But he has been this like really promising player. And it's been really great to see. I think him as well as, oh my God, I'm actually blanking now. Now that I've given so much time to like for thinking about this, I'm forgetting the other player. But there's been like, I would say Trigger, PattyMac, and one other Protoss player that's come up recently. Has been just an absolute delight to see coming up in North America, because it's been showing some like life in this scene. New players who are kind of coming up and showing promise is just so important, I feel like, for a StarCraft scene.
Yeah, you know, I feel like the NA scene is definitely one which has had a lot of like players who have maybe not risen to the top of the top, but have kind of broken through into the lower ends of the DreamHack groups, right? You know, I feel like NA is almost one of the more, maybe not the most varying region, but it definitely has a lot of variance down in the bottom half of the groups. You know, and I say that just because, you know, China actually has a lot of change-ups, so does Oceania, for example. So, yeah, but NA has its fair share as well, whereas in Europe, you know, despite it being much bigger groups, there's probably only like 2 or 3 differences season by season, right? Because the top 30 are just so well set.
No, I think that's absolutely true. And it's one thing that does kind of create a lot of energy around watching North America StarCraft, is that you do feel like, hey, there is the potential for these upsets with big names versus small names. You have some very strong stylistic choices of different players and everything. And I mean, always interested to see where things are going to go. And speaking of which, we already do have something kind of interesting going on. Semper is going for his low ground expansion and everything. He's spotted out that this Adept is making its way across the map, but he already has that bunker getting started on up.
Yeah, getting a bunker rolling, which is always making sure he's going to be safe, as the Reaper is going to be pushing on through and just trying to do what it can. And Adept is going to try and delay the bunker, which it does at the last second, with another SCV nearby. So it's not really any problem. You can just still stay safe here, no issue at all. And PattyMac just getting up into that Twilight Council.
Yep, PattyMac gonna be able to get up that Twilight Council. Usually we're gonna be seeing Blink coming out of Protoss players in this situation. Semper, definitely one of those players who I think when he has played Terran in the past, and I think still to this day, his strong suits definitely come in kind of the mid and late game stages of TV, like whatever, especially TVZ. But I think his multi-pronged aggression has been definitely one of his big strong points, and just being able to harass his opponent. Now, I am interested to see how well this Widow Mine harassment is going to end up going, as he does have that right now just set up in his main mineral line. He's also building a tech lab on that starport.
Yeah, gonna be just going into that Raven nice and quickly, right? So just be nice and safe in case it's CTs. You're pretty much covered. The Raven's generally very useful anyway, so it's not too much of a problem. So yeah, I think this is a fine decision, something that's fairly normal to do, as I do have this Reaper coming all the way around the back of this main. Isn't going to see much though, and is going to get shot down. I mean, sees the Twilight Council setting up, I suppose, but I feel like a lot of things that he was kind of somewhat expecting to see anyway, right? There's nothing out of the ordinary in the space.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, like you were saying, that Raven opening, not the most unordinary thing to see out of a Terran player. It's going to cover a lot of bases and stuff, and especially is usually considered a pretty strong thing to do versus like a Blink opening, where maybe the Protoss player is getting a little bit more aggressive. But we're not seeing any additional gateways or anything thrown down just yet for PattyMac. So it does look like he's just going to be sticking around on those 2 warp gates, not looking to put on crazy amounts of pressure with Blink or anything.
Yep, I like it, you know. They're both kind of saying, you know what, hey, first game, let's not get crazy. We've both got kind of our honest macro games to show. both going to go into just a pretty regular startup.
Yeah, big fan of it as well. The fast robotics bay is going to be cool also for PattyMac. Now that robotics bay coming out after the third base and everything, and also after Blink has finished up, but it is going to be one of those funny situations where your opponent is going to have that Raven. The interference matrix is potentially going to be a really big factor once Semper decides that he wants to try and do some kind of move out or try and take some sort of fight. But still going to be some time before anything like that happens. So really is just very light pressure from the Stalkers poking at the front with Blink.
Yep. I mean, with the setup, there shouldn't really be anything that you can really do, but you're happy to be on 3 bases. You're setting up your robot bay behind it all. So, once again, as the Protoss, kind of just looking at this and saying, cool, so far so good. I've kind of gone where I wanted to be this far. Yeah, just feeling pretty decent across the board, I think.
Okay, Raven kind of poking around over here, spotting out the positioning of those Stalkers. Sim is still a good ways away from finishing up, so I don't think that PattyMac is any kind of danger with those Stalkers for a bit. He doesn't really have to worry about, getting chased down or anything, especially with Blink there. He's even going to be able to keep an eye out on where the positioning of the army is and everything, so I don't think we should be seeing any massive skirmishes over here, but I guess, Wardy, in these kind of situations, what are we sort of thinking about when Semper needs to actually start securing that kind of area outside his natural so he can eventually establish that third base?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just whenever he can right now, because it's not like there's a ton of units there. So, just moving out in general. He's actually set it up so he can flank these units and get the kills, which is a really cute move. So, yeah, he probably could have done it sooner, but he waited a bit longer, and it gets him the kills rather than just the, hey, take the position. He wasn't in like a major rush either because he's kind of focusing on this push initially and then the expansion behind this. So with that being the ordering of things here, I would say that, yeah, you're generally looking to be pretty happy with just getting a few unit kills. And because, again, you don't need the third base location until the third base is ready, and it ain't ready yet. So now this push is going, he gets sieged up, but these rocks are already down, and that's obviously massive because otherwise it could be a little bit tougher trying to kind of, break this position down as the Protoss. So it's just going to be easy to walk into this, as he's going to set up a couple of Widow Mines, just the one for the moment. But PattyMac has the right idea.
Yep, PattyMac is trying to get this defensive setup over here as we see the siege tank starting to whittle away at the hit points of those zealots. The shield batteries are healing them up a little bit, but the whole position definitely taking a bit more damage than I think he would have liked over there. Remember, charges and everything is finished up, so once he finds the opportunity to try and dive in on this army, he's going to have a pretty solid army for it. But the double drop into the main base is that multi-pronged aggression I was talking about, forcing a recall here out of PattyMac, splitting him up, even ends up recalling one of the Colossus, but with the other Colossus just getting interference matrix, what is there really to defend on this right-hand side?
Just the super battery, really, and the super battery isn't going to do that much, especially as Widow Mines hit these Zealots of Vengeance forward. If the tanks target fire that Colossus, if it comes in range, it would die very quickly. As you are going to see, the bio units are starting to thin out a little bit over here. There's still a Marine in this main base, and if that Widow Mine goes off again, that would be spectacular. I mean, it looks as though this is starting to be a cleanup now from PattyMac, but Semper has definitely come off better out of all of this, right? 15 workers killed. Obviously, you trade out in armies. Semper is a-okay with that because his army is just so replaceable along the, further down the line here.
Yeah, he even actually managed to keep that Raven alive as soon as it had thrown out the interference matrix on the Colossus. He actually just went back home with it for the most part. So now he's going to actually have a little bit more energy built up on it for a second push later on. I don't think he's about to move in again with just such a small force, but PattyMac's the one looking to move across the map. And honestly, Semper, his army must still be a little bit spread out because I think he's got, the double drop heading into the main base right now. So Semper, he's going to be able to maybe get some damage done over here, but the shield battery overcharge plus his warping of units will make things a bit tougher. Oh, but PattyMac didn't continue pushing across the map. He pulled all the way back home.
Yeah, he's not going to go for the commitment, which just kind of means that once again now Semper is dealing damage without any real consequences or anything. 7 workers, 8 workers killed. This has a really good trade out once again. Now this group of units is going to get caught. The Raven in the middle of nowhere as well, getting kind of out of hand. So Semper loses track of things a little bit, and now PattyMac is again quite a few unit kills while heading into this bigger push. Man, those Zealots are battered, and if they take one more Widow Mine shot like that, a lot of them will go down at once.
Yeah, I think Semper is regrouping all of his units together, though, and PattyMac is definitely going to have to back off a little bit. He at least needs another warp in of Zealots or something to try and buffer for those Colossus and for those Archons a bit. But once he does reinforce the army, I don't know. I still feel like there's maybe something he can do with his army. The longer this game goes on, I feel like the rougher it's going to get for PattyMac because it's a Terran player with more workers than his opponent on even bases. And the Terran player has ghosts and other upgrades on the way. Like, as much as I don't think that PattyMac's army is extremely well suited to take a big fight, I don't really feel like his chances are going to get better as the game goes on.
His best chance, maybe if he can just kind of expand and sort of sit back, and then maybe Semper continues this aggression but gets kind of battered away a couple times. That might be your best chance, because at that kind of point, you can at least say, hey, look, like if I attack, yeah, you're probably going to clean up my army, but at least if you kind of get overconfident into me, I have the chance to trade well in a couple of smaller fights, and then maybe I can collect together and have a bigger push. And yes, there's going to be ghosts, there's likely going to be Vikings and stuff as well, but I just don't know if pushing before that is really going to make a difference. I mean, yeah, he's got some more tech units up now, but this is already a much later stage compared to when we started talking about this a minute ago.
Yep, this is already going to be a painful loss of that 4th base. Sniping off the medevac is kind of nice. Ensures that this army cannot easily get out of there. Gets the 2nd medevac as well. So now this Bioforce has to stim to get away. But even the Archons plus the Stalkers giving chase is going to be finding some free pickoffs here. But I say free, but it's not really free. He loses the 4th base, which is a pretty brutal loss right now.
Yeah, definitely a kind of an important moment to, of course, group on the side of your screen, just reminding you that this match is important because it keeps the winner really in contention to maybe still make playoffs, while the loser is going to have a very tough time making playoffs because it's very unlikely that multiple players will not pick up the 4-3 scoreline at the end of the day. So, yeah, it's big, important match. Things calming down for a second here, but the heat will continue. I think it's going to come mostly from Semper. He is definitely in the position to put pressure on. But hey, PattyMac, he got up to 4 bases if he keeps this alive a little bit longer. And then he's got Disruptors coming out too. Like, you know, TTs also. The game could turn around if he gets those tech units on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, more tools you have at your disposal, more opportunities there are to try and make those comebacks happen. But being in a kind of out of position place outside of the Disruptors definitely have to buy some time while he moves across the map. But as we end up seeing, Semper's not going to have any of it. Immediately focus fires down. One of the Disruptors gets the second one, gets the shield battery, and is going after the Nexus. The Nexus can't even actually do a recall. It doesn't have the energy for it right now. PattyMac is moving his entire army back home. He didn't even end up going for the attack.
Yeah, I feel like PattyMac's done this a couple times, right? Where he's just like, actually, I'm just going to come home. It just feels as though, I mean, sometimes it feels like, yes, that's the right idea, but it feels like more than once in this game he's decided to come home when all is already lost, you know? It's like the base is already dead, the damage is already being done, and he comes back home to not even really do anything because the units are already happy to lift off because reinforcements are clearing them out. So yeah, it's a little bit rough, I gotta say, as we're gonna see. Defensively speaking again, I think Semper's actually in a great spot, so it's kind of tough because, yeah, maybe kind of pulling home doesn't feel great, but then actually looking at the potential attacks he might take, they didn't exactly look brilliant either, so kind of stuck in a difficult position, really.
Yeah, losing the Warp Prism is definitely not going to help, as that was one of the few ways he maybe could have finally put some pressure across the map, because realistically, PattyMac has been on the defensive. He's kept trying to move out, and every single time he's ended up getting pulled all the way back home, so the Warp Prism was maybe going to be a way he could strike back, put a little harassment on Semper, but Semper is now maxed out. He's got his 4th base on the way, and that 4th base was never reestablished there for PattyMac. He's finally starting to try and throw it down right now. But even that actually, it looks like it's going to get immediately killed as he throws it down.
Yeah, and he actually targets the Nexus as well, just to try and catch it before he sees it. So that's a kind of Nexus kill, a pylon kill. Drop some EMPs here, just this army starts to retreat, and it should honestly scare these Stalkers and Archons a bit. This army on the left side is now going to run in. There's just nothing here. Okay, a few Disruptors as well. Disruptors are scary, obviously, as he gets rid of the chunk of Widow Mines to begin with, but fire 2 at once, which means he can't constantly kind of send a string of Disruptor shots forward, although next one showing up, so maybe he can. Now, Semper's had a lot of units for a long time, not really doing much, and it has allowed PattyMac to get back over here and create something of a defense with the main army.
Yeah, but as soon as the Archons start getting EMP'd, as well as these Zealots, even as Semper's army is starting to get beaten and battered, we can actually see on the right-hand side, there's still more army for Semper around. So I don't think he'll die to a counterattack. And he's already taken away so many of the costly units over here for PattyMac. The Disruptors and the Archons and some of the Colossus are still alive over here. So it's not like PattyMac has nothing at his disposal. The PattyMac needs another fight to go as well as it just did.
Yep. He really, really does. That's, well, there was definitely some good moments for PattyMac, but overall, will it be enough? Again, there's so many EMPs available that kind of terrifying every time you see them dropping down. So something you've got to also just really give a lot of respect to at the moment. As this Spine army back around into the center, and at least PattyMac is again still focused on building those disruptors. If there's anything that's going to bring him back into this game, it probably is the disrupt account.
Semper's army moving all the way to the far left as a DT also runs into the natural. So Semper's army is actually out of position for both this little push of the Archons, the Colossus, and the Disruptors, but also for the little DT harass that's going on. This might actually help PattyMac a little bit. He is going to get out of there before he gets caught and ambushed by the entire army over here for Semper. One big Disruptor, it could actually really make a big difference in this fight.
Yep, as you see, the rock's gonna get knocked down. Disrupt shot again. I mean, it's scary, right? Semper's generally gonna have some trouble pushing in. I think this is the point of the game where you just need to have a little bit more air control, actually, where if you have a few Vikings and you get a couple libs up, you can really have a good time zoning out disruptors, setting up positions. But right now, all he's really got is the bio pushing power, and that is very susceptible to those disruptors pushing him back.
I will say, you'll notice Semper is not really the player who's been going for splits or anything versus these disruptors. There are some Terran players who will. Semper has very rarely ever been the player that goes for splits versus the disruptors. It's actually kind of been one of his big nemesis in this matchup, is dealing with disruptors. And I feel like PattyMac being able to get to this count now has really been able to take much better fights. He's now only trailing by about 20 supply.
Dragon's like, you know, Semper doesn't really split against disruptors, proceeds to get his entire army hit by disruptors. Like, well, actually, that's a really good point. That was not a caster curse in the Slayers. That was exactly what you said he wasn't going to do.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it was honestly like this long period of time where I remember Semper Legacy of the Void came out and he just really struggled versus disruptors. And it was a period for like more than a year, like 2 years. I think he did eventually start to kind of overcome it. He got better with his reaction times and everything, but I think it's still like a big pain point for him is he doesn't really split versus disruptors. He is the stem your army and run away from the shot player, or sometimes the like pick up into the medevac player.
Well, yep, as this orbital's going to get forced to lift off. Colossi, Stalkers, Disruptors all coming through. Thinking about continuing to push up. Honestly, PattyMac denying a base. He's a little bit afraid of being flanked, but actually in this case, pushing up in towards the natural might have been the safer option, because then he would have kind of naturally forced the army that was flanking to come all the way around and then maybe even up a ramp eventually. Now PattyMac sees a few units here and says, maybe I can get them. He gets a ghost at least, not a bad start.
Yeah, one of the 5 ghosts out on the map, and I don't see any more in production at the moment. Semper is established in the top left-hand base, so if he's able to knock out this base and get out of here, he can still secure a pretty decent spot in the game. He is able to get that snipe off and get out of there alive with most of his army for now. Might be losing a few of these Vikings on the retreat, which does hurt considering those 3 Colossus just, they never died, Wardy. They never died.
Oh, this guy's been around like this entire time. Don't even have that many kills on them considering, but yeah, obviously just putting out damage every now and then. And wow, big blink forward here is PattyMac really feels like he can push this away. A disrupt shot goes through. Doesn't quite land on anything this time, but PattyMac has got all of the map control. It's kind of crazy how this game's turned around, you know, really just lots kind of going on as Stalkers blink through. That's a medevac killed.
Ooh.
And now Semper's Gold Group units have just escaped away from this main army of PattyMac. PattyMac's going to come in and deny this base again. Semper once again losing some SCVs, and yeah, PattyMac happy with that pickoff.
Yeah, Semper is counterattacking with a decent-sized Bioforce over here. He doesn't have any ghosts over here. Otherwise, actually, Semper has been pretty good about doing things like throwing EMPs out on the Nexus to prevent recalls. But, okay, finding a free Disruptor. I don't think you'll say no to that. will end up taking an eventual attack for that disruptor, so not so free anymore, but goes after the rest of the disruptors, tries to right-click down one of them, does narrowly manage to escape the rest of the shots. Overall, I mean, if he had been able to get the Nexus and get out of there in exchange for those units, I think it would have been okay, but PattyMac is just continuing to bleed Semper out a bit on these units.
Yep. It's kind of a really fun back and forth game. It's a lot of army positioning, right? Kind of getting over one side, getting over the other one. So, you know, someone's setting up a bit of a surround and stuff. It's been kind of fascinating to watch as Semper again, just little hit squads trying to find damage. This time, Stalkers just blinked straight in. Those units were low as well. Fortunately, Medivacs actually are there to evacuate this time around.
Yeah. The other thing I will say, I actually don't hate the aggression and everything Semper has been putting on for the most part, even though he has been taking some bad trades. But I know Semper sometimes does get into this mode where he's just hyper aggressive a lot. And he does end up taking some worse and worse trades. And things can start to sort of slip away from him a little bit. I think so far it's been okay, but I mean, I'm not going to complain about that drop at all. The question is, can he also still defend? He is going to go for this attack over on this Nexus. No chance for a recall over there, as I believe recall might actually still be on cooldown. Yeah, still on cooldown for probably another 15 to 30 seconds or so.
Plandry is going to go down 2, so base trading at the moment. I really like Semper to start off on the base trade, though. I mean, the question is the disruptors, right? If they can slow this down and kill some units off during the base trades, I mean, that is basically what will swing this. I love that these SCVs are ready just to repair here, try and keep this Plantry alive. I mean, you're actually going to kill a Colossus right there. And now your Bio Army stimming to the top left, looking to chase down that major force, which is kind of stuck up here for a couple more seconds. Recall's about to be available. Now we turn around, though, going for some disruptors.
Yeah, PattyMac is trying to reinforce with the disruptors all the other army units across the map to help support that army that was trapped in the top left. Didn't end up getting the planetary, had to recall out like you mentioned. Now also PattyMac's stuck in a kind of weird spot where this bottom right-hand base is sort of isolated. It's going to be a lot harder to defend against any sort of, I mean, even a small single medevac drop harass is actually going to make things a lot more complicated to defend that bottom right-hand base.
Yeah, no, the bottom right is just so disjointed from everything else. It's going to be tough. We pop a Guardian Shield already. Wouldn't mind gets a single Zealot as Disruptor set up. I mean, it was a massive stim from Semper. He really looked as though he was ready to commit into this. DT across the map as well. I mean, Semper has the larger army. It's just a question of, does he feel confident enough to actually put that army size to use?
Yeah, I mean, he even technically has slightly better upgrades. I don't blame him for not getting the armor upgrade, as he only has the weapons upgrade for +3 weapons right now. But both these players are very, very broke. As you can see, PattyMac doesn't have anything in the production tab at the moment. And it's just because this has turned into such a scrappy situation. But wow, PattyMac is going to be able to get a lot more of the workers over here. Forces the lift up again on that orbital. Is getting so many of these Marines in the Bioforce at the top of the ramp. And Semper supply just plummets there. More disruptor shots coming on out. Are any of them going to land? One massive shot lands. A second shot tries to go off. He loses all the last of his disruptors, though, and the Colossus are starting to get picked off as well. Was this the moment that Semper needed to start pummeling on through? Or can somehow PattyMac start to reinforce this army?
I mean, it's going to be difficult to reinforce this army. There's so much bio, so much power to just jump, because there's also nothing to really slow down this Bioforce. If there's a couple of disruptors, like, how are you going to keep them alive? I just don't know if you do. Now Semper's going to find this bottom right side base as well, so this is completely just doomed. And of course, Semper's not exactly had the safest of times back at home on his own economy, but he is going to be getting that reset. While PattyMac isn't doing much about it. Semper chasing these probes all the way down to the corner. The attempt to recall, and he just get a bunch of them out at least, so a small victory, but he's got no base to send them to anyway, as Semper just needs to try and repair this planetary. There's not actually the damage output to get rid of it just yet, so you've got to get the SCVs first, but by then, you've actually got this planetary which is actually going to survive, because now Marines and Marauders showing up. Where do you even blink to? It feels like PattyMac was committing in for it. And Semper does close out this game, 25 minutes, but geez, had to play his heart out to get the win. After it felt like it was such a good start for him as well, it really still ended up going the distance.
Yeah, a very, very hectic game for sure, as PattyMac looked like he was starting to crawl his way back in with those disruptors. But at the end of the day, like you said, Semper was still able to clinch out a victory, which is an important thing. I think if game number 1 had gone PattyMac's way in that way, that is one of those games that can really, really cause a huge momentum halt there. Semper is also one of those kind of like momentum-based players, I think, a lot of the time. So I think him being able to finally secure game number 1 and like look good at the end doing it, at least, if not in the middle, I think was actually pretty important for Semper's chances in this series.
The only thing I worry about is that PattyMac put up such a great fight from behind, right? So, as always, what if you just don't get off to that good a start as Semper, right? And I do feel like there was a little bit of reluctance from Semper as well when he had a very sizable lead to just do what kind of wins you these games, which is to maybe actually slow down from all of these big attacks, which can be deflected by a couple of disruptors, and say, hey, what if I just tech up a little bit? What if I just get into a couple liberators so I can really play slower fights? Because all of these fights from Semper were quick, they were fast, they were jumping on a base, they were fighting over there. None of them were like, hey, I'm going to take this position and start to work my way forward from here, or, you know, you're moving that way, so I'm going to adjust a little bit. It was always like, go, 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 100% of the time. It was never kind of like, hey, let's slow it down, consider what's really happening. Which I think when it gets to that stage against disruptors, it's actually really good to do. It feels terrifying because you're in a lead and you're like, well, if I've got the lead, surely I'm the one that can just keep on pressuring. Surely he's going to buckle down and break. But that's not always the case, and PattyMac really didn't buckle and break for a very long time. He took a couple of dents in his armor, but he kept on fighting, and a lot of that is to do with just how Semper decided to keep on engaging. So it'll be interesting going into Romanticide, a very defensive map, of course, where it's going to be even harder for Semper to find damage than on 2000 Hemispheres.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think it's something that Semper also has like had as a struggle. I mentioned before in the past where he gets overly obsessed with doing the aggression and stuff. I actually feel like Semper's natural state, it's like, if you have people just starting StarCraft, it's like their natural state is I'm gonna sit back and like make stuff. Semper's natural state, like his default mode is I'm going to send out harass, like I'm gonna attack. If I have like a spare moment, if he's not thinking about actively what he's supposed to be doing, he's just attacking, I feel like. And I think sometimes it has kind of hindered him in exactly the way you're talking about. Or even sometimes if just, his opponent has a solid defense, sometimes he's a little bit too overeager to go for that attack. So I'm interested to see how the players are going to approach game number 2, given all of the things they've learned about each other after game number 1. We're going to be starting over here in the top left-hand side of the map. Top of the blue Terran player, he is Semper.
Bottom right, our red Protoss is PattyMac.
All right, ripping those good old cranky ducklings. So you were talking a little bit about Romanticide and stuff, and I mean, we've seen Romanticide a few times today already, Wardy. I know we always like to talk about how this map plays out and how easy it is to take bases and stuff. I don't know, do you want to go into any of that and how you feel like it would affect these two players? Because I think given the... okay, you know what? Wardy, you know what? Maybe you'll have something else to talk about. I have a feeling you might.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting little proxy. No, I mean... honestly, I think overall, if it does, somehow get to that stage of the game, it really is going to be Semper that has to change, because PattyMac, how he was playing, and obviously he was playing from behind, so maybe that's got something to do with the defensive style he played. But from PattyMac's point of view, he really just needs to kind of do what he did before. Like, this map just plays more into that, and especially if Semper is still trying to play those quick aggressive attacks, it's just going to be even harder to pull off on Romanda's side across 3 or 4 bases. It'll still be good on like 5+ bases, right, where you are spread out across the map a lot as well. And Semper was really good at going like far left and far right with his attacks, so that's something to maybe watch out for. And if the game gets into like that 5-base stage, maybe it's going to be very difficult to get that 5-base setup really rolling. I would say that's my biggest concern for PattyMac, which otherwise is, otherwise this map is actually a little bit better for him based on what just happened in game 1. Is a Stargate coming through, this SCV scouting, but not finding just yet.
Yeah, and isn't honestly queued up to find it anytime soon. I think the Stargate will have already finished with an Oracle on the way by the time Semper actually spots it out. But Semper should know something is up because, still no Nexus at the natural. And also just the missing extra pylon is going to be a huge, huge signal there. So Semper should have some idea about this. He's getting a bunker on the high ground. I mean, I guess he still doesn't know exactly what's going on right now, so that's totally fair. But is he going to actually be prepared for the Oracle?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be depending on the Widow Mines, right? And depending where they are at. Green count's decent too, but yeah, it depends where they get positioned. Now, of course, the CC's on the high ground, so if you're not going to go to the low ground right away, then yeah, I guess you'll be fine. But obviously, it depends. If you can maybe bait the units to the low ground, you're like, hey, look at this Adept you could kill. That would be really nice if the Marines went chasing that, right? He's going to try and keep units at the front as the Adept shade in, and here comes the Oracle. Widow Mine. Yeah, good start. Really good start.
Has it well hidden by the command center itself. Definitely going to work out well in that regard. Kind of actually, that's one of the things you can only do if you're the top spawn also. Because otherwise, you can't really hide it behind the command center. You have to hide it maybe behind like a refinery or something. But while that's
just like hands off the keyboard, head in his hands. I was like that is. I know like losing your first Oracle off a proxy Stargate is pretty bad, but like I think that's the most violent, not violent, but like exaggerated reaction I've seen to that happen. Because yeah, I guess obviously very important matchup at the end of the day, and definitely not how you want to be starting game 2 when you're down a map.
Yeah. You know, as much as I think things were going like surprisingly well in that last game with PattyMac taking good trades, even though being super far behind and stuff, like I know that we can look at it that way, but for PattyMac, like there are a lot of players who will also look at that game and think how, like, even if I was behind, like I was trading so well, I was taking all these fights, how did I still lose that and everything? So I don't know, maybe PattyMac's just kind of already not in a great spot after that first game mentally.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things, right, where it's like you've been fighting like a losing game for pretty much the entire series, right? And even, you know, it feels like sometimes you're getting close and things start to go well, but only for you to still lose out overall.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the most frustrating ways to be playing, right? Sometimes I feel like it's even like better to actually just be like a little bit ahead and then losing one big fight in one big moment than to just like constantly be like almost catching up and never quite getting there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't mind just on hallucination there as these Marines have dropped down. Going to get a pylon kill as well, which, I mean, credit to Semper. He's finding some damage just off the early medevac, which is great. Ooh. Here was the Oracle. So that's actually a really cute move. He sets off the Wouldn't Mind initially, so now he gets in, he can pick off some SCVs. A really cute move. So getting himself together and making some cool moves at the moment.
Yeah, even using a bit of that Sim City against Semper, as he's able to use those buildings to make it harder for those Marines to chase him. All of the Marines head over to the main base. There's only the drop Marines that actually head over to the natural, so we'll still be able to deflect that Oracle. But yeah, PattyMac doing a really great job. I love the idea also. I don't know if this was what he intended to do, but I think he wanted to set off the Hallucinating Phoenix on the SCVs, because the Oracle or the Widowmine won't friendly fire kill the SCVs. It'll bring it down to like one tap away from death, and the Oracle can actually pick up a lot of kills that way.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice little observation of a potential something that can happen. Is just going to be seen our... Well, Oracle just dropping a revelation in. Stimpak combat shield and +1 attack is all on the way up as well here from Semper. So he's getting into all of those upgrades, ready for the next step, ready for the big push, which will be trying to aim at the third base usually.
Oh,
see how it goes for him.
Oh, 5 Stalker hit squad, more than enough to actually one-shot these SCVs. So already picking up a handful of them. Blinks in further forward, which is going to commit him, and he has to recall to get out of there. No other way around it at that point. Loses 2 Stalkers on the retreat there, which I think maybe got misrallied or something. That's unfortunate because Semper is going for a big attack right now. And after losing those Stalkers, you actually have a little bit less vision on the map as well.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a big push from Semper. You know, there's that position you can take just like below the natural, which you can actually see the natural gases with. If you take that position with this kind of army, that can be very frustrating to fight against here as PattyMac. So, charge is going to be done soon. I was wondering if it's going to be done before Semper gets in position. Probably not. Look at the Robo positioning, by the way. He's going to get this Immortal out. It's very possible that that's going to be the last Immortal that gets out, because that Robo is prime target right now. Yep, that's not going to be pretty. I mean, you can super battery it to keep it alive, but that means you've still got to make a move here pretty quickly as the Observer. is going to be cancelled on that Robo. It goes down. We just blink into these siege tanks. Well, you got a lot of units in the natural, so this does mean Semper gets overrun a bit here, but he's also in the natural doing pretty well. Although, actually, no, he was fighting a Stalker being super batteried. If he actually was fighting the probes there, he gets a bunch of probe kills.
Yeah, I mean, it's an understandable situation, but it's definitely unfortunate. Semper, of course, microing his army that just kind of had this massive attack happening, but not able to micro his drop that could have focused right down a lot of workers. Now he's microing this little harassment force to the left-hand side, is able to eventually clean up the Zealots, but loses the majority of the Bioforce, is going to end up losing one of the Medivacs, thankfully not the one with units in it. A PattyMac moving across the map right now is already picking off even more of these Marines, and while Semper is making this very hectic by going for yet another drop in the natural, I am a little bit worried about, oh my god, PattyMac is just pulling back again. He has so many units ready that I don't think Semper would be prepared for right now with how many units he lost. But, oh, he's just gonna pull back.
Yeah, but Semper has a bunker and he has Widow Mines behind it. I actually think Semper would probably be okay. No, I know, like, it feels like Semper shouldn't have that much at home, but he's actually got a pretty good defense at home. I mean, PattyMac's just once again the one taking the beating without really being able to put any hurt on his opponent at the same time. So definitely rough, definitely pretty rough so far.
Yeah, I do think PattyMac's army is large enough that he can contest a third base right now for Semper. Because I think Semper, without having like that choke point with the wall and the bunker and everything else, like his army is not that scary compared to PattyMac's. If PattyMac's army is together, which actually, speaking of which, it does feel like a few units are kind of splitting off over here for PattyMac. He doesn't quite have the High Templars with him, and oh no, as his army gets pounced upon, the High Templars are also going to be potentially vulnerable, but they got Storm available, are able to cover a lot of that Bioforce with it. And the Widow Mines, well, they don't quite get the hits they were looking for.
No, not really. Bioforce keeps on running away. High Templar trying to deal with this Widow Mine drop, not doing very well at it, but 13 probes going down. I was going to see the Medivac would love to stay alive and evacuate those mines for round 2, but not going to happen. That at least is shut down. That feels like an essential shutdown, because if you don't shut that down and it comes back and kills 13 probes again, well, that isn't fun. Semper in a worker lead, of course, always great for Terran, who's also working with the mules. So really good economic position for Semper, definitely feeling good. And honestly, even the Protoss army, it's like, okay, yes, you've got Templar and Storm, but overall, I feel like actually the Protoss army is not exactly like crazy good, considering we've got Ghost now taking to the field. Robo Bay will be done soon, and that's going to be when the Protoss army steps up a bit. A couple Colossi and a couple Disruptors can really beef this army up and really just make it look that much scarier.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit unfortunate, PattyMac does have to remake his robotics facility as well after having lost it to during the last attack and everything. So that stuff may be a bit delayed compared to where he'd want it to be. But, you know, as long as he is able to get it up before Semper is able to go for another one of those big attacks, I think it's fine. And funny enough, PattyMac is going to be moving down over toward the 4th base location, but is he actually looking to move further out into the map right now? He's kind of maneuvering around with his army, but so is Semper.
Yeah, both armies on the map. I mean, if you can get some storms off, right? I mean, that's PattyMac up into a good setup. We've got Disruptors on the way through. Storms and Disruptors are somewhat difficult to use at the same time, right? Because it's a lot of spellcasting and a lot of aiming. The other problem is they both kind of achieve the same thing, which is like force the Terran to like kind of back off and split up a little bit. So something to think about too is these Widow Mines don't get to burrow right away, and a bunch of them getting picked off. EMP, the Prism, now those storms are coming down, chasing Semper's army. The mines do all right towards the end, maybe still not as good as they would have loved to be initially. They need to get cleaned up as you know, we're going to drop a storm. That brings
There's no observers.
Get one
There's
more.
There's actually no observer.
Dropping the main at the same time, though, right? It's just there's always an opening that Semper is finding. It's actually incredible how good he is. Just when it feels like, oh, you just lost a big fight over here, it's like, oh yeah, but I just killed 13 probes in the main, and I still have that Medivac alive. So actually, who's really in trouble in all of this?
Absolutely. The multi-prong harassment Semper has been keeping him in this game, and he's still got that worker advantage now, 66-50. PattyMac is trying to replenish a bunch of the workers he's been losing. He's back up to 53 or so as he's been making 4 at a time. Adding on the Dark Shrine as well while he gets out the double Disruptors, going up to 5 very soon. That is going to make things a lot more complicated for Semper, especially given, well, you know, that last game and how the Disruptors impacted that last game.
Yeah, no, it's definitely concerning. I think PattyMac's gonna be happy with where he's gotten to. Getting a 4th base upright. Again, he has this real ability to kind of come back from positions that aren't looking so good for him. Semper just not taking great, really good kind of later game fights. Needs to sharpen up on that a little bit as Zealot's going to start counter-attacking here. 2-2 upgrades while on the way from Semper as well, by the way, so he'll be retaking an upgrade lead. Once that is done, some Widowmine's putting in some work. But the main army has to go back to deal with those Zealots, and of course that gives PattyMac even more time to get set up. And now DTs are going to be on the map. Another form of harassment that Semper has to deal with.
And it's going to be harassment he has to deal with now that his bunker and his little wall in on that 3rd base has been actually knocked out. So he's going to be dealing with the Zealots kind of trying to run in and doing some harassment while the main army is actually trying to go in. Ooh, Disruptor does get a ghost. That's all that ends up dying over there. That actually could have been really deadly because Semper was most definitely looking at those Zealots at that moment.
That's a reasonable Disruptor actually. Like Semper says, oh, that's so close to me, it's going to hit something. So he's just like, I'll just split my ghosts up. I'm not going to try and run them both away. Like, I'm just going to accept one's dead here and just kind of split the other one away. That was kind of cute. Nice EMP on top of everything to start off. Hits the High Templar as well. That just melts once that EMP has hit it. We're going to be seeing PattyMac. It's just south down the bottom left and not really making a move yet. Here comes the DT moving in. Turret starts to build on this base, but not ready yet. And currently no scan available, it would seem. That's an EMP, though.
Yeah. Good reaction there from Semper. He's able to deal with that DT. And with the missile turret there and the bunker, it does become a lot more difficult for the single DT to get a whole lot more done. But PattyMac, this army is just massive right now. And oh god, between the storms flanking in and the disruptor shots, it just feels like there's no way Semper, with the army size that he had, could actually win that fight.
Semper's army is just way too kind of split apart, right? It's just a little bit of everywhere because he's trying to dodge the storms, he's trying to dodge the disruptors. Try to deal with the flank, and oh no, these stalkers. Okay, they don't have a blink to go chasing after those those medevacs, but that's a nice little Widowmine shot. Kills a little bit, splashes Nelly too. High Templar down dead. This PattyMac might just want to kill those rocks to make movement between this area he's in now and the base a little bit easier. Besides not to, as it's PattyMac who is backing up just a little bit, but man, again, another game where Semper's absolutely in control. And PattyMac just draws himself back into it. It's terrifying to think what happens if Semper just gets off to, if PattyMac just gets off to a better start in the game. He doesn't have to fight from behind. Like, I mean, maybe fighting from behind is a superpower, but yeah, he's been playing really well once he's fallen behind in these games. A few disruptors going down now, but finally gets a big connection. And Semper just is running out of units.
Yep. A Colossus comes in for the other side, so that's going to finally be a little victory there for Semper, but his army is so stemmed up right now. All he can really do is pick off the reinforcements, which grant you is still some great pickoffs right now. And fighting versus only just the Stalkers, not a bad set of pickoffs also. It really does feel like both these players play a lot better from behind than they do from ahead.
They're like, hey, you take the advantage back. I want to play like God again. Felt good.
Yeah. It really does remind me, there was a, back in the day, Nina also, I think, doesn't have this problem as much anymore, but she used to have this similar problem where she'd play really well from behind, but not as well when she was like in the lead. And a series between Semper and Nina was just it was an NA slugfest, let's put it that way.
One falls behind.
One falls behind, yeah. And then the other one would just be like, all right, time to play like a god.
It's funny how that works. We're just going to be seeing... Well, Liveray is on the way up from Semper. I do like that he's kind of teching up more so than he did the last time around when we discussed this. So, right idea. Don't know if it's too late already because he's already taken a bunch of fights that are obviously not exactly ideal. DTs just going to blink past the mine shots. Oh, Liveray is here too, though. This is okay, honestly. I mean, DTs are expensive, but PattyMac's the one with money just not really to spare per se, but he's definitely got a little bit more supply to work with, so I don't mind as long as the DTs are slowing Semper down, which they definitely are, hitting that economy, gonna just keep him away from what he wants to be doing.
Yeah. Nice move on Semper, by the way, to have two of the Widow Mines kind of spaced out there at that base, because if it was just the one Widow Mine, then yeah, the Blink can handle that. Second Widow Mine definitely catching PattyMac a bit off guard and helps clean up a lot of those DTs. Really good EMPs on a lot of the Archons and stuff at the front lines. So Semper's able to A little bit of pressure there makes it a bit more challenging for PattyMac to try and push in over here. Semper, ooh, big stim at the top of the ramp. I don't know if this is a fight you want to take, PattyMac, but I mean, if you get a big disruptor shot, okay, I won't say no to that.
Yeah, the DTs are swiping away as well. Semper he just doesn't have an answer for these disruptors, man. They just, his answer is to try and just fight and hope he kills them in time, which PattyMac's responding to well. Like, the first disruptor dies pretty quick, but then he sends 2 disruptor shots at once. And it's just like, well, you just can't, there's a point where you just can't kill all the disruptor shots at once. We will go to game 3. I'm pretty confident going to game 3 that we're going to see a map that's a bit better for Semper, just because he's really kind of excelling at some of the more aggressive games. And that's kind of not what Romanticide is great for. 2000 Atmospheres as well, not great for it. So I feel like the next map is bound to be a bit smaller. Maybe something like an Oxide or so. And that would definitely be a big help towards, Lightshade. Same idea, right? A little bit smaller. And that definitely kind of has me feeling decent about maybe what Semper can do in this situation, and maybe being able to actually take advantage of leads. That's his biggest problem. He gets ahead, he just can't close the game out. Defensive plays from PattyMac are good, and hence we're tied up.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, in this series, it is an important one in the group. The winner of this series effectively eliminates the other person from their chances of advancing out, even in 3rd or 4th place, as both of these players are sitting at a 2-3 series score right now. And it's not that winning this series is going to advance you from the group. It just allows you to keep fighting tomorrow for a chance to advance on out. So it's an important match for both of them. It's coming down to that final game now on Lightshade. So can PattyMac continue kind of some of the momentum that he's built up from just being able to pull himself back in games and just not get off to a bad start this next game? Or is Semper going to be able to finally get that good old start in that lead in the early game again and then carry it out into a victory a little bit faster?
I really feel as though, obviously last game PattyMac starts with that Oracle getting blown up. That's obviously not great, but he made some really cool moves after that. Hallucination, takes the Widow Mine shot, second Oracle gets there, a few Stalkers trying to make some plays. I liked all of that. But overall, Semper still has had a lot of the momentum. Like I say, we'll see what he can do here. I really feel like Semper's had some good setups with some pushes as well, and they're going to hit even harder on a map like Lightshade. So something else to also keep in mind is in the bottom right, PattyMac.
In the top left, we have our blue Terran, Semper. All right. Well, Wardy, we have SCV making its way around the map. Gonna be going a kind of interesting scouting path.
Yeah, I think just an eBay block is likely. I know ZG was talking about Semper using it against a Strayer as well, setting up into 3 racks on the follow-up. So looks like this is potentially what he's going to be going for. It wouldn't be surprising to me if, Semper has a certain amount of builds that he likes to use, and at some point reusing them is kind of a thing. There's the SCV, Engineering Bay block, and of course PattyMac doesn't know it as well. The probe went one way, scouted, then going to go the other way. And this is actually really bad because you're going to spend a very long time scouting but not seeing anything. And all of this time scouting, you don't know what's across the map. You don't know about maybe a delayed timing. And you definitely don't know that on your natural as an Engineering Bay, but he drops down a pylon. Oh, wow. So PattyMac may be thinking about something here. And that is sort of like that's like a proxy Twilight sort of thing. Like maybe like a Dark Shrine super quick or something. I mean, you put Stargate over there, I suppose. It's closer to the Terran's main, but not that much closer than your own main base, right? So that's why I'd lean towards the Twilight just slightly.
Okay, this is a crazy thought, but he also got the Zealot started pretty quickly as well after the Gateway finished up. So either he is thinking about something aggressive there, or I think maybe he already knew that Semper likes to go for this Enchi Bay block. And now, by throwing down the pylon over the 3rd, well, I guess he threw up his extra pylon also before he really needed it. Okay.
Yeah. SCV was about to go scout it as well, and it just turned around. I think he's aware that something is up because he scouted initially, and he knows there's like kind of a missing pylon. So yeah, he's maybe a little bit concerned, and He actually sends another SCV around, by the way. So there's 2 SCVs on the map. And unfortunately, the one place he's not going to look is the place that's actually super close. And it's actually kind of an odd place to proxy something. And that's why he's probably not checking there, because it's way more likely it's really around the edges of the map elsewhere. One SCV is coming back down the right side towards the natural. But you know what? It's still not going to see the Twilight that's spinning up with Blink.
And to give you guys an idea of the context for this, it is a Twilight with Blink before his natural expansion was taken. So the SCV will come in and should spot out now how recently that Nexus has been thrown down. So Semper will not necessarily know what is coming or what is happening, especially with the Adept shutting it down from getting to the main. But he should absolutely know something weird is happening. And that's exactly why he's got a bunker on the high ground. He's got his command center up on the high ground. He's adding on the tech lab to the factory. Like, Semper is in defense mode right now.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, credit to him. It's what he needs to be as this SCV found by his ult. And he's going to be so confused, though, because he probably thinks, like, oh, I've looked everywhere on the map. And even if you look at his vision, it's very hard to see what he hasn't seen, because it really is like round the edge of like a darker portion of the map, right? So it's just hard to see that that's not where you've scouted. So yeah, missing out on a scout. But I mean, how important is that scout? Because he's so well set up defensively anyway. As long as he doesn't start second guessing himself, he's still going to be all right here.
Yeah, I think that he still has all the units and tools he needs to get up a proper defense against any kind of Blink harass. Because remember, it's only off of 2 warp gates right now. It's a very fast Blink for sure. The timing of Blink is fast, but there's not additional warp gates or anything coming out behind this. And frankly, I mean, there's only 2 stalkers on the map right now. There were double Adepts warped in. There was a Sentry warped in. I'm actually a little bit more worried about PattyMac, as we not only have all these Marines and stuff moving across the map, we also have a Liberator on the way. And if PattyMac is not in position and also able to keep a lot of these stalkers alive against this little Marine harass, that Liberator could do a lot of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of units showing up, and man, you don't really want to be showing up with these units when there's Blink ready to micro against you, right? Some damage on the medevac. Blinks away. I mean,
I guess that's a reveal.
Yeah,
that's exactly what now.
Which is nice, because now he starts backing away, but these Marines are still in trouble. He can't play around the center of the map, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So the siege tank blinks in, and that's a dead stalker, and make that 2, in fact. Yeah, that was a beautiful play from Semper. He knew what he was up against. He knew these Marines were going to be chased, and he set up to deal with it.
Leveraging the map excellently there. Now, the Observer may have just caught the hint there of that Liberator moving around. So after taking out these rocks, I imagine that PattyMac's going to immediately need to make sure he's got some Stalkers ready in his main base to deal with that Liberator. A few Stalkers ready at that natural expansion as well. The Liberator's making its long journey along the corners of the map. So I think PattyMac has some time to react to that. And yeah, he already has those 2 Stalkers right in the main base. Very well done.
2 more gates as well, so he is going to get 4 gateways on the map. He has a probe patrol in the 3rd location. I mean, 2 extra gates before the 3rd is not a bad idea. Semper is looking to be aggressive again. He's going to be ran into here right away. Gets actually some okay damage. We'll actually siege up and should... I thought he might have clipped just the edge of the army, but not quite. Lib comes in, 2 stalkers in position, and yeah, he's not paying attention. Now he does. He retarget fires at the end and gets 1 probe, but obviously would have loved to get 2 at least.
Yeah, definitely not the harass damage that Semper was looking for there. Now, well, these Stalkers are continuing to give chase to these Marines and the siege tanks. Now being able to chip away quite a few hit points on these Marines, able to actually get them low enough that you can start killing a few of them, even with the medevac there. Adept's even to be shading forward to provide that high ground vision, sees that the tanks are there, is going to decide to move back in before Immortal Hardened Shields are back on. Oh boy, that might have been a misclick there. Loses both of its sentries. That or I guess it's 1 sentry, and that's definitely going to hurt his ability to get additional scouting information.
Yeah, that was obviously not the move to go back in. I don't know what part of that really made sense. So like you say, maybe just a bit of a misclick more than anything else. I'm gonna have Stalkers blinking up into the main base. If I'm Semper right now, I feel like I can maybe split my units, some in the main to deal with this, and some on the low ground just in case he blinks out. As I wouldn't mind actually gets a first shot though.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised I feel like it's just so ingrained into Protoss brains that if you jump into a main base and you see 2 tech labs researching, you kill the tech labs. I feel like almost every Protoss player will just make that move. But decides to go for the more conservative and like safer approach of just saying, I'm going to go for some SCVs, but still loses some stalkers in the process.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not been a cheap game of PattyMac. It feels like he's been losing a lot of units, taking a lot of hits that were avoidable. Again, it feels like Semper's the one, to me, who has a lot of the early momentum, early in this game. But the way that's played out, recently is that basically that means that PattyMac's going to play amazing for the next 10 minutes, and I have no idea who's going to win.
I do think there's one especially concerning thing compared to the last two games for PattyMac. Ooh. Oh boy, that is going to cause a few more of these stalkers to go down. At the same time, that drop unloads in the main base over here. PattyMac doesn't have anything to actually help respond against it right now. And I was going to say, PattyMac doesn't have the healthy worker gun he did in some of those previous games. He needs to make sure he can keep his units alive. He needs to make sure he can keep the worker alive.
Oh, killing the Colossus is massive. Ooh. Only 5 probes dead in the main, but he actually does keep the medevac alive, so that's obviously huge. Widowmine's going off. He wants these immortals. He's going to get the sentries. One immortal left. I don't think you get it as Zealots charge on forward, but overall, it's a pretty big reset on the tech, right? Because you've gotten rid of the Colossus, you've gotten rid of the, one of the immortals here. The sentries are all gone, so it's a pretty sizable reset, all said and done, I would say.
Absolutely. I think again, in the previous games, PattyMac was sitting on, even though he was losing a lot of army supply and everything, or he'd be losing a base, he was always sitting on something close to like 65 or 64 or something workers. He was getting into like these okay spots economically with his worker counts, and he was able to still make things happen from there. This game, it really does feel like PattyMac is a bit lower on the worker count after like some of the harassment damage and everything. Might be taking a few more losses over here as Widowmine gonna be able to get 2 workers. Yeah. Not too bad of a response there, but is PattyMac going to have the tools he needs? Does he have the funds to get the tools he needs to stay in this game?
I'm not sure if he necessarily does. This army of Semper doesn't look as big as I thought it might. Let's drop from before comes back in, get the Stalker. Survives for the moment. Going to sit in this corner and wait to maybe come back in for a probe or 2. It's one Zealot now across the map. Apparently this is a game of dealing as much damage as possible with as little as possible. And that Zealot does get cleaned out. It feels like this army of Semper in the center is not very big, but I guess it's not really an army as much as it's just kind of a drop right now. A lot of this army just back at home, spread out a little bit in other drops. And he's going to start bringing everything through the middle, but up to 2 Colossi, heading into 3. I guess this isn't the stage of the game where Semper struggled. It's when the Disruptors start coming out, so still got a little bit of time maybe to make stuff happen.
I do think it's also worth revisiting the damage some of the High Templars are able to do with Storm and stuff, but it looks like we are just seeing Archons being morphed in with the Temple Archives. No Storm being researched or anything, so it's going to be about the Colossus and those Archons being able to keep this army pushed back. Another, I think, Zealot harass run by over here in the top left. Seems that a decent portion of the army is still back at home, though, so Semper is going to not have the easiest time trying to push it over there, given he doesn't have his entire army with him right now.
Another Widowmine going to go off. It actually hits a good chunk of the Zealots, which is great. Again, it's just a question of how does he fight this? I mean, he's getting up the ghosts. They are going to help for sure. It does feel as though like Vikings, right? Like would be amazing, but he's just never really getting to enough Vikings soon enough. I mean, ghosts definitely are at least a necessity, right? You need some kind of tech to really fight against this. We grab the Observer. That's a nice scan, but if PattyMac keeps pushing, maybe Semper's in some trouble, although defensively, maybe he's already loads up 2 medevacs and just says, cool, build the Observer, let's get moving. And if that isn't seen and he gets across the map, those are the moments where Semper really has been dealing the most damage throughout these games.
Absolutely. Getting the Observer also does have the added benefit of those Widowmines being able to survive through some of these fights and get some better connections off on these charge lots. So I can kind of see something still working out there with the right kind of trade if PattyMac gets a little over aggressive or over eager with this attack, but I mean, he does still have a very scary looking army. The double drop gonna be look to try and get a lot of damage done over here. PattyMac effectively gonna be forced into attacking in now, whether you wanted to or not, since this double drop is gonna be getting a lot of damage done in the meanwhile. Yeah,
he just warped in aggressively as well, which means that again, not really anything to deal with the double drop. So Semper needs to make sure he controls that because he's gonna be starting to lose his 3rd base. He's going to stim in to try and protect it right now, but the Colossus damage is going to be pretty insane. The Ghost EMPs, they went down, I think, but not really necessarily doing enough. I mean, 26 SCVs down. He's killed the third, but I feel like there's still more to be done from Semper, who's now going to start stimming towards the natural. He scans ahead in the natural expansion. There's only a couple Zealots going to depower the pylon and the battery, so that's going to be a massive part of this as well. I mean, Semper, if he can get some more energy on these Ghosts, these Archons will melt, and then it's only Colossi he could maybe jump on top of. When he has continued to do a lot of damage, maybe just needs to get up into the main base and really shut down some pylons. As we dive through here in Vikings, kind of putting in some work. It's crazy.
Yeah, the one of the Colossus does end up falling over there thanks to the Vikings, but the Archons get in on top of those Vikings. The final shot kills another one of the Colossus over there. Armory is going to get target fire down, so the Widow Mines are going to get revealed even if they are burrowed. Pros being pulled against the bio, never a position you really want to find yourself in. But another one of the command centers is going to end up falling over here. I think barely +2 weapons is still going to finish up over here for Semper. The recall is finally forced out to save this base. The Archon's not on the right side though, so he cannot snipe off both of them. Medevacs, he still gets one of them at the very end of the day. PattyMac, he still has 33 workers though, Wardy. And Semper, I mean, he's still got 2 orbitals and 9 workers. It's not much of an economy, but I guess both these players have an economy and some tech units left.
Yeah, I feel like Semper's a bit unlucky in a way because he did such a good job denying bases and, you know, probes, but there was this base on the bottom side, and that means that in an end, he's actually only really killed 1 base, and he killed a good amount of probes, just not enough compared to the SCVs that he lost. That army of PattyMac, he was like a couple of EMPs away from clearing out the Archons, and it would have been a completely different story if he had.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the big difference. Is Semper's standing army right now is actually still pretty good. He's going to start making a couple libs. I wonder if he can actually take a fight, though, because I do feel like he's missing the Ghosts to really do the damage to the Archons. There's not a lot of Zealots, though, and I mean, it's literally just the Archons. If you can bait them into the Widow Mines and they take some splash, like, this can go bad for you right now. You're going to start running in. One Zealot goes down, and Archon takes a shot. Now other Widow Mines going off. Archons are going down. It's the right idea, at least from Semper.
Yeah, I mean, these units are a lot harder to replace for Semper, though. He's not making any more workers. PattyMac has made some rounds of extra workers, and he's doing exactly the one thing that I think was missing for this. He gets up some shield batteries. I actually don't know how Semper is going to be able to break him. If there's just one shield battery overcharge to help keep these Archons or the Zealots and the Colossus alive a little bit longer, I just don't know that Semper has the firepower to actually push through the shield battery DPS while also eating all the Archon and Colossus attacks.
The Liberators are pretty huge, honestly. The Liberators are like the one thing you don't have much of an answer for. The answer to your Liberators is getting the Archons and the Stalkers on top, so he's just going to pop the super battery and go. But a lot of what's in the, of fighting here is out of range of the super battery. You do kill one of the Libs. Oh, Semper kind of thought he could get the super battery. I kind of agree. I think that was maybe the moment to get it. This one Lib now doesn't really want to unsiege, but it will probably have to reposition a little bit. At least you've already forced off the super battery, and you actually kept this one Widow Mine alive too. That did fire once. It's amazing that that's going to maybe get another chance. Here comes a DT, and that's going to be so frustrating as obviously, fighting that is annoying. Oh, you lose that Widow Mine as well.
There's no scans. There's literally 0 scans right now, and it is 20 energy and 25 energy on both of his orbitals right now. He's not going to have a scan for another almost 15 to 20 seconds.
I think the DTs are going to win PattyMac the game, right? Like, just...
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, because if Semper can force another fight right then and there, but now even if he cleans up the army, I feel like dealing with the DTs is almost never going to be really properly possible. And he just types out GG. The DTs get the job done, and PattyMac takes the win.